All right, so it looks like we got the playoffs for the NFL set up. I was like, hey, neither of the teams I wanted to get in because I was like, hey, my Dolphins, more on them later, but they didn't. I was like, they didn't make it. I was like, pretty much, it seemed like it was a tap out situation by the end of it. Um, I was like, and then the Bengals didn't even have a chance because the Chiefs decided to make sure that everybody had a chair because we're all sitting in on this one. So the Broncos are in. And I'm like, all right, cool, I guess. Or whatever. I really want the Bengals to get in. But hey, I knew it was such a long shot for that to happen. So, hey, it is what it was today. I sort of peeked in on some of the games just because it's like, but for the most part, I knew that most of the game wasn't going to really mean too much. Saquon's not going for the record, so it's like, what's the point of watching this game? That was a bummer. Like I said, I was like, once you know that the Chiefs are sitting down to everybody, you sort of know that the Broncos are going to wash them. I will say that I think a lot of the teams that were over here celebrating for beating basically the second and third string people, I'm like, yeah, I know that you got your accomplishment of going into the playoffs and stuff like that, but I do find it really weird that you're over here like, yeah, and I was like, you ain't do shit. But anyway, hey, you still gotta do your job. Um, but I was like, I had mixed feelings about the Buccaneers and the Atlanta Falcons because I was like, on one hand, I want both of them to get in, to be honest. Because I was like, I think that the Bucs are really hot, and even though I was like, their defense has waned, their offense is really high potent, and Baker Mayfield's been on a tear. That I was like, oh man, they could really knock somebody out. But on the other hand, I was like, as we sort of got to see today, I was like, if I was like, this is sort of like the potential that you sort of feel like Atlanta was going to have, where you got Bijan, who was able to rack up like 170 total yards or whatever. You had Drake London going off for like 180. Like I was like, they have talent there, and now with Penix, who also scrambled in for a touchdown, and I was like, don't get used to that. I was like, Penix really, to be honest, is kind of more like Geno, where it's like, yeah, he can run, but he gonna really try to like show off that arm and sling it all around. But I was like, and the thing, what's really weird is that, cause I was like, I think him and Tua are really like the only lefty quarterbacks. I think at least starting. I think there's one more other quarterback. But I was like, but lefty just looked funky. But I was like, you think about it, that's how it is in like most sports. I was like, even like seeing basketball, I was like, left hand shooter always also look a lot more funky as well too. Cause I was like, it just looks. I was like, even with both of them, I think Pennis got a better arm than Tua and stuff. But I was like, even that, I was like, it doesn't look like they're throwing the ball with anything, and then all of a sudden that thing is over there like 60 yards down the field. But I was excited because I was like, I knew that I was thinking, I was like, oh man, Penn is getting into the playoffs. You get to see how Atlanta can look. I was like, another rookie quarterback, and also too, I was like, I knew it was going to be probably another. I was like, since the Buccaneers matched up with the Commanders, I was like, oh, that's another rookie showcase type of thing there or whatever. But hey, alas, both couldn't get in. I was like, Atlanta lost to a resurgent Bryce Young, who done basically kicked anything off about any ideas of drafting another quarterback. He's going to be their guy next year and stuff like that. And maybe now things rolling. Now that y'all found out that basically that's your guy, they'll start actually being like, cool. Now let's actually start putting together a team around them instead of just being like, let's just sort of like finagle some pieces around and see how things goes. Yeah, so I was like, there was that. There was nothing else to really show. I was gonna say, the Patriots. Two things here. Of one, I'm glad that I was like that boy Milton. I was like, I wish he didn't go to the Patriots because I thought he had enough talent to go somewhere else and sort of be a backup in waiting or a developmental quarterback. I don't like the idea. I don't like the idea of cause it was really similar to basically how Washington did RG3, their first round quarterback, and then taking another quarterback in Kirk Cousins later on. And I was like, what's the point of having two young quarterbacks like that in that type of way? But he did get a chance to show out, and I was like, we'll see how that goes going into next year, because they decided to fire their coach. And while I will say, I think at the beginning of the year, I think Jerod Mayo was looking a lot better than toward the end of the year. But at the same time, you got to remember, at the beginning of the year, most teams ain't playing their A game. I was like, you can sort of take teams by surprise early on, and then like more film comes out, and then you sort of get to show who you sort of are by the end of the year. So I was like, it would make sense that it was sort of wane after that. I was like, I never read too much into what he had to say after the game or nothing like that because I was like, he doesn't seem like he really like talked that much, and also him being a defensive guy. I was like, really outside of like Tomlin, how many dudes you really see that's a defensive guy that really just talks like you always hear the offensive guys always like have like some more like energy or whatever. Where the defensive guys always just sort of like we ain't play our A game, we ain't do what we need to do, yeah, and be a little like rough with it. I was like, but I mean, they also lose it. And if you want to be frank about it too, it's like you think about it. I was like, there was actually about I want to say like 3 or 4 games I felt like they was in the game or in the game to win it. Like they had that one against I think the Dolphins where it's like the dude went out of bounds or whatever. They had one that like the earlier game against Buffalo that came down to basically towards the end. Like so they were having games where they was in there and they just didn't get it. Now I'm not gonna act like I was over here watching the Patriots games that in depth of being like, oh, that's where Mayo and that's where coaching is and stuff like that. I was like, it really was just sort of like I would like watch a little bit, especially like once Drake May got in there. But I was like, Brissett had them in close game. They were beating people they wasn't supposed to beat either at the beginning of the year. But I just think that it's to me, I was like, this. I feel like he's really a scapegoat because that team, we all were thinking that team was sorry anyway. And it was a sorry ass team. We thought they were going to be. We thought they were going to have a top 5 pick anyway. And then when it came out at the beginning of the year and started beating some teams, we was like, oh, maybe this ain't it. Their defense playing really well, even though they ain't scoring any points. They're trying to run the ball really effectively and stuff like that. And I think that once the whatever it was with Jacoby Brissett started to die off and you put Drake May in there, it changes what the team does. Now you're not trying. Now it's like, look, we're here for development Drake May. We're here to see how he plays. And there was a lot more juice to the offense and whatnot. And I was like, but the defense started to fall at some point. But I was like, the game changed at that point. Now you just want to see Drake May throw it all over the lot instead of over here necessarily protecting him or how with Jacoby Brissett where you're a little bit more limited. But no, also you just drafted the quarterback, so that seemed like that would give you some leeway of being like, all right, cool, dude, are we sure we want to switch this team? But also, y'all picked Jerod Mayo, and I don't mean like y'all picked him because I was like, of course, y'all picked the coach, but I mean like y'all hand selected this guy. This was going to be your successor, your heir apparent to Bill Belichick. That to me, that looks a lot worse than if you would have scoured and then found somebody and was like, oh, that's the guy that's here. I was like, I also think that he did with what the talent was on the field. He don't have no control over who necessarily is here or not. That's up to the general manager and stuff like that. And the fact that I'm just like, okay, so y'all didn't really make any there was a couple of attempts of trying to get a receiver, but not to the point that y'all actually did. I was like, I was like, a lot of these wide receivers are young. I was like, with Polk and stuff they're really young. Like I said, who drafts 2 quarterbacks in the same draft when you need weapons and stuff? That's like so with stuff like that. I'm just like, so you basically just got rid of him just because of what? Because you're used to being like really good over time, and now all of a sudden you suck, and you just like, well, that doesn't seem right. That doesn't seem acceptable. I was like, we're rebuilding, but we shouldn't be rebuilding. Like, what the hell are you talking about here? So I think I think that look, I was like, I'm not saying that he over here also was like he was doing such a job or whatever. He deserved to keep and stay another year. But I'm just saying, I was like, I don't understand your method. To me, if you don't get Mike Vrabel or one of these other Patriots, because I'm like, you can't go get Josh McDaniels. He's failed at 2 spots. I was like, Vrabel had to be the pick. Otherwise, what did you do this for? Yeah, I was like, so I was like, you can miss me or whatever they tried to bring out with Mayo or whatever. I was like, Kraft is the one that fired him, I guess, because hey, that way he could save face for the other people that have control over all these decisions. Because I was like, it's really y'all asses here. Um, Going now to my Dolphins. I was like, hey, I was like, they lost to the Jets. They let Aaron Rodgers go ahead and get his 500 passing touchdown. And then after the game, Mr. Tyreek Hill decided to be like, I was like, he was fine for a while where he was like, I wanna contend. I don't want to be on no losing team. Then he's like, the door's open, and then you hear the reporters being like, so do you want to trade? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, yo, what's your problem? Like, Tua was literally hurt nearly half the year. I feel like in that scenario, I was like, that to me, that's what you said. I feel like that's really what you're saying, more so the fact that Tua was really hurt. I was like, you're sort of coming at Tua because I'm not. I was like, I'm not going to say that we were going to set the world on fire. Our team is what our team is. But if we did have Tua in that middle stretch where we were trying to go between Skylar Thompson and Tyler Huntley, who also just got there, so he wasn't playing as good. He had like the last two games. Then I'm like, we would have probably been able to at least maybe get a couple more wins here, and that didn't necessarily happen. But for you to be the fact that you got where I'm like, dude, I was like, I get it. You want to win because you already got the stats and you already got the money and all this other stuff. But at the same time, I was like, granted, I was like, yeah, you wanted to be here, traded for you. I was like, look, I understand because the team is going to have to make some decisions. I was like, might lose the safeties. I was like, you got to figure out what you're going to do with Jalen Phillips because he keeps getting hurt. Gave Ramsey all that money as well. I was like, I was like, Fuller and stuff like that was on 1 year deals. So it's like there's going to be a lot of shifting around with the team that I'm not saying right now like to let them go or not like that, but I'm saying that you might want to get some fillers out just because you might be able to get enough. Like you ain't gonna get a first round pick for Tyreek Hill, but you might be able to get enough draft capital. Maybe like I was like you'll be able to get a 2 for him, so 2 in some combination. To somewhere somebody needs a receiver or that's like very close. That might be able to help the team. I think Tyler Huntley has earned his stay as the backup to Tua. Because I was like, at this rate, we just don't know about Tua of being durable for a whole season. So hey, I think Tyler Huntley is a really good backup in that regard. I was like, and also the Tennessee Titans got the #1 pick now. And I think that's going to be intriguing because I actually do not know which direction they should go. I did a video about the Giants and how I think that was actually sort of a blessing because I was like, I don't think the Giants would have picked Shadur Sanders, but that was like that just me and seeing how they sort of operate and who they sort of like to pick. Tennessee is different. I was like, look, obviously, would he be in a position to be like, I don't want to go there and stuff like that? I think that's a little too early to tell. It might be the same thing like with Caleb, where you just going to go where you're going to go. But with Tennessee, as they were sort of splitting duties with Will Levis and Mason Rudolph today, that sort of tells me that I was like, I don't think you're not sticking it out with Will Levis. You're not willing to be in his development plan because you're just like, no, because I was like, you're not splitting it for Mason Rudolph. If that's the case, like it'd be different. They had another young quarterback there. What they did with Malik Willis, with the Green Bay Packers, but I don't know. I don't know what they should do. I was like, part of me is like, oh yeah, they take Shadur Sanders. I was like, they taking Steve McNair. They taking Vince Young, so they're not afraid of taking quarterbacks. At the top of the draft or nothing like that. I was like, and Mariota. There's the other one. I was like, they drafted another quarterback at the top, and I was like, Mariota. So then I was like, so they've done this several times. That it sort of makes, and I was like, but their best success. I was like, Mariota did pretty. I was like, Steve McNair did good. I was like, they actually had a lot of good time with Vince Young as well too. And I was like, so they're all. I was like, all their I was like, their quarterbacks. I was like, I mean, they're probably being the best. Have been like when they make the playoffs at a good rate. So I was like, they're not a place that's like that quarterback goes to like die or nothing like that. So that's why I think that I was like, I could see them taking Shadur Sanders. But I was like, or do you try to accumulate picks? Now, this team also. I was like, in the division that they're at, they're not too far away. I was like, but I was like, to me, their best success has been when they had Derrick Henry, of course, but also Ryan Tannehill. That is like, would you rather go and get a Sam Darnold or something like that and draft like Travis Hunter or something at the top of the draft? I think that's something that's intriguing. For them at the spot. I was like, you want somebody to trade with somebody desperate like Oakland, well, Las Vegas. I was like, that's the only one I can think of that might be desperate enough to do so. Um, yeah, but I was like, but other than that, other than the games, like I said, they were just games at this point. We sort of just got the matchups. I'll talk about them another time. I was like, but that seemed like what all sort of happened today. There'll be some more stuff later on. Maybe we'll see if Tyreek Hill does he rebuke what he just said and go back on it or whatever. But anyway, that was NFL time, I guess. I was like, I wonder how this also. You know what? We're not gonna stop it. How did this also change up like the Lamar and the whole MVP thing? Now that he got the extra number, Josh Allen didn't play here to do anything to pass that. But I will say, the Lions. I think one, they got the number one seed, which I'm happy about because I was like, that's what I wanted them to do. I wanted them to win against the Vikings, just because I was like, I want to see what they look like healthy. But hell, I was like, the way they were looking like today, I was like, if you get that and you able to get some other people on top of that, they might have a hard out. Cause I was like, their scoring did not stop with Gibbs. Gibbs was a monster. I swear that one run where it I don't think you could pull that off in a video game. How he just that his first touchdown where he was just able to squeeze between the block and that defender. I was like, that's something that's only like real life type of speed right there. But he was just dominating. He was a monster, and they would just be able to pass. And after a while, don't get me wrong, they was rattling golf for a minute, but after I feel like that field goal drive at the end of the first half really solidified that this game ain't the same. Because after that, it's just like they couldn't, like the Vikings couldn't really stop them at that point. And Darnold was getting his ass lit up the whole time in a way that you like. Considering the personnel that they really have, it just kind of just was like, yo, like they couldn't do nothing. They was over here like holding Jefferson up. Addison, I don't even know if he done anything the whole game. To be honest, I was like, TJ was over here just getting bullied by one arm Anzalone. Uh, and I'll say too that I was like, hey, I was like, I know that whole thing was supposed to be a safety with Jared Goff early on, and that maybe could have changed the game. But also, I was like, the Vikings also got away with a delayed game back there. I was like, I heard Tarico saying something like his timing of the clock was off, but I was like, that thing hit double zeros for 2 seconds before it got initiated off in a way that I was like, cool. Then I was like, they're even. It don't matter. They're even. Yeah, no, the Detroit, if they play like that, they're going to be a tough out, especially considering that we don't know how Jalen Hurts is going to play, I assume, next week, but that doesn't mean that he's going to be in rhythm after the couple weeks, that the 2.5 weeks he's been out. So I was like, and I was like, I think, see, this is the game, and this is the stuff where it's like, that's the hesitation of being like, Darnold. I was like, I don't think it's enough to be like, oh, we're not going to bring him back. I think it's enough to be like, okay, see, this is why we're going to take down a little bit of that money right here, boy. Yeah. So I was like, I think we got some interesting matchup, because I was like, I think that everybody in all these matchups can get got. I would not say that Buffalo was just going to run through Denver. I'm not going to say that the Steelers can't make it through Baltimore for a third matchup, because I was like, they played them close until the game. Then the game just got out of hand that second time around. I was like, Washington Bucs. I was like, I was like LA versus. I was like, I think that's the one with the Vikings. Uh, yeah, no, I think pretty much everyone can get got this season. Where it's like, don't be surprised. It's something that I was like, I think the Chargers are going to be. I was like, I wanted Pittsburgh to play Houston and the Chargers to play the Ravens. One, because I wanted to see Lamar get a lick back from the Chargers from them years ago. Also, I was like, I think that Pittsburgh do have the chance with a right matchup. And the Texans, while on defense, I was like, they had been stout on all levels. I was like, their offense, you could tell why they went out and got Stephon Diggs earlier, and for the fact that he's hurt and Tank Dell is also gone, and Mixon, I was like, got banged up through the season. You can see why they went and got these pieces, because they needed these pieces, because it's a different opposite offense, and you can see it with C.J. Stroud. But yeah, I think this is going to be a fun postseason. I think the matchups are great, and also who is a who's who game in this one. This is the parity that the NFL wanted, and I think that it actually works out compared to in some other cases. I was like, I'm not gonna bring in the other NBA in this, because I was like, I feel like it's a little shot. But anyway, let me know how y'all feel about this. I would like the matchups or whatever. I was like, later on in the week we'll talk about the matchups, because I was like, they could be kind of interesting. Anyway, let me know what y'all think. Till then, peace. I'm out.